This is the Ouya controller, and now that I have an Ouya, I wanted to talk about it a little bit because this seems to be the most criticized part of the system. First thing that people notice from watching the videos is the way batteries are accessed. You can see that these front panels come off and the batteries are laid within. Now the panels, if you can see, are held in with magnets, alright, which makes them a little bit difficult to get off, and it makes no snap sound when you put them back on, which is not great. However, this only makes about 60 seconds of inconvenience, and after that I haven't even thought about it. So some people really don't like this, but I can tell you it doesn't make that big of a deal. Now the reason why I assume they did this, look at the reverse side of the controller. We have a completely smooth rear side. Now compare that to this 360 controller, battery pack right there in the middle, and this PS3 controller where they've put their FCC information and barcode right in the middle. Now when I use the PS3 controller, my fingers feel that every time. So that's one thing that they've tried to fix here. The panels themselves are made out of a brushed metal, which gives the controller a very cold feeling in my hands. When I pick it up after I haven't been using it the first time during the day, it feels nice and cold in my hands, which I like. The sticks here and here, much like the Xbox 360 controller. I had heard in the launch model that the sticks had no grip on them, and if that's true, they fixed that in this model I got a week ago, so this is not the launch model. However, if you look, I've had this for a week, tops, maybe 4 days, and it's started to, you can see maybe right there, it has started to wear from only about a week of use. Okay, let's talk about the shoulder buttons. This is the big thing that people seem to hate. The bottom shoulder buttons, I don't know how they did it, but there seems to be an insufficient amount of cushion when you pull it. Like, my fingers feel plastic scraping together. It's very unnatural. They do the job actually working in-game. They're not so bad. Real Pinball, or whatever the pinball game is that's out, uses these to move the flippers, and to be honest, it's not that bad. The biggest problem, apart from feeling a little cheap, is their placement. Let's compare it to a PS3 controller. With a PS3 controller, in order to make the triggers feel natural, the handle has been pushed downward, because as the palm moves down, the fingers move up. Look at the motions my hand make. When I raise my palm, my finger goes down. See that? Palm goes up, finger goes down. Palm goes down, finger goes up. That's the biggest design flaw here. They have made a flat design with the triggers on the end. So my hand, the palm goes up and the finger must also go up, which creates a very awkward and unnatural feeling. See that? If they had lowered this palm grip a little bit, the trigger feeling would have been much better. And I think the reason why they went with this design was because they had to remove the gyroscope from the handle in order to make the battery placement. This is straight to accommodate the battery, but in contrast we get a really awful feeling on the trigger. So what could they have done to fix that? Well, first and foremost, I think all this was done to maintain the rear smoothness, and I don't think it was worth it. I hope a future model of the controller puts the batteries right here in the back and gives us a little bit better angle in that front. That is the bad news. The good news is every developer for the Ouya knows this, and very few games actually use these trigger buttons. So, in practical use, when I play the Ouya, I pick it up, and instead of having this awkward reaching up feeling, I just keep my hands here at the bottom, and in which case the controller feels very, very comfortable. Okay? Now, every developer knows what people think of the Ouya controller, and therefore a great deal of them make extra compatibility so you can just use your PS3 or your Xbox 360 controller. You'll just have to look game to game. The compatibility is very different. PS3 controller syncs out of the box, but I've had some games not work great with it. Finally, we come to the D-pad. The construction of the D-pad is actually not bad. They've avoided the half walnut shell that the early models of the... Let's see if you see the 360 controller. The entire D-pad was exposed, and a lot of people didn't like this model. So they went with it inside of the mold. You can see corners of the mold here. Right? Which would have been good. The main problem with this is the way the buttons stick out. See that and that? These wings here, as they angle upward, dig into your thumb, which is yet again a big design flaw. However, this particular choice, I can't justify quite like putting batteries in the handle. I see no real reason to do this. So, my advice to the makers of the Ouya, when they make their next model, because they did once mention they were going to make a new model over here, first and foremost, give us a flat D-pad. A flat D-pad will be a lot more, not responsive, but it'll feel a lot better in our hands, and it won't cost you anything extra. Second, take the batteries out of the handle, put them in the rear where they are on the Xbox 360, take these palm grips and drop them down about 15 degrees. That way our fingers are going to sit right on these triggers. I think the only thing left to really discuss is the touchpad. A lot of people who review the Ouya say the touchpad is awful, and you know what? It's not great. It has actually been pretty difficult to use. The good side is I have not yet played a game that requires the use of the touchpad. It's a thing that's there. I use it whenever I'm going through the browser, which is something you have to do to get, well, it's something that helps a lot when getting ROMs and emulation installed, specifically GSNES. You use the browser and download the games right there, in which case, yeah, you're using this touchpad. You use this like the mouse, you tap on it to click, and there you go. But that's really the only time I've used it. Now, I do know that there's some sort of casino game which requires use of this, and for that reason I haven't downloaded it. Final analysis of the controller, not as bad as people say. And the reason why is because the developers have worked around the biggest flaws and made it so that you don't need these as much. Therefore, I have actually been able to play this system for several hours on end. But it is something that workaround is a temporary fix. You know, in a perfect scenario where developers start making more complex games for this system, yeah, we're going to need those. So we're going to need better working ones. In the meantime, that's your Ouya controller. It's been a great system. I've had a lot of fun with it, and for $100, I really recommend it. We're gonna get to a full review of the system maybe next time coming up. If you want to see the contents of the box, I think Gamester81's unboxing has been the best and most complete review of what it comes with. In the meantime, this is Critical Failure, and that's the Ouya controller.